So we've worked around this, we've worked towards this, is what I should say, is that, you are now at the place that you need to make a decision. What is going to be the topic of your site? And as I've mentioned before, if you want to do something besides a review of the content for this course, that's up to you. Again, I will say I think some may not choose to do this because they're going to have to write a little more content. But I'm actually going to do this because I just, I think it'd be fun. But I also want to show you one I had done for a previous semester. As a matter of fact, here's a different template that I'd use for a different semester. And of course, for me organizing the site, it would be around the topics like, lectures, hands-on, current topics. So what would that look like for you, right? There's definitely things you could use here like front end, is definitely, we've covered a lot, but actually I think that's almost too broad, right? So you could say markup, you could say web stack, you could say workflows. I mean, this is what I want you, because your interest, what you gain the most from is your interest in this class, is what you're most interested in. So one of the things that I see when students do this organization is they really organize it around the things they were interested in, or just the way they felt based on the content. And this semester, as I've said before, I've changed the content. There's been a lot of more hands-on versus actual concepts, because I feel like giving just a nicer balance for what we're trying to do. And actually this class is going to be renamed Introduction to Web Development starting next year. So I'm actually already prepping for that. So anyway, but it is time for you to then come up with these, and this is if you hark back on the Project Zero requirements, these 4 or 5, and then we call it menu, but really it's also a way you're organizing your content for your website, right? For your site for Project Zero. So you got to give this some thought. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to do it for mine, just that initial flow, and then I'm actually going to end up creating, even though I've created a subpage, I'm going to actually end up changing it to be one of my actual pages, because then for each of your menu items you have a landing page, right, that then has other links to it, right? So other topics, other pages, because this is a landing page. Your index HTML is your landing page for your entire site, and then for each menu item you'll have a landing page for that. And you can see, like, one of the things I did was a cloud, tag cloud. You can do it various ways. You can even have sub menus here. It depends on your template, what you do. But that's what you want to then, as you're doing this, right? So you, at this point, you have to select what direction you're going here. Okay, this is the point. From here on out, you can't change it, just because we're at the end of week 7, really 2 weeks away from the end of the class. You don't want to be switching. I want you to do this, and you need to decide one path or the other. It can't be a combination of the both. If you're going to do a reorganization of the content we've covered, then that's the path you're taking. If you're going to do a personal site, then that's fine. But by the way, if you're going to do something else, you need to talk to me, and so that I, before I see it here, so that you and I have a conversation about that, even if it's just through email, right? So what you're going to do here is I'm going to show you how to, again, this is, what we've built upon. I'm going to just build it out I'm going to build my menu, and that's really, and this is the process I recommend, because if you build that index page with all those menu and those files, that you're not creating the files but having a link to them, then when you create those sub pages, it's just much easier, okay? But in your reply, what I want you to do then is, based on your menu, right, is what are the pages that are going to be under each menu, right? So maybe I'll come back and talk about this depending on how long this takes. All right, so I have this index right here, right? And so I have to figure out, again, I'm going to have these as a physical file links, again, not a single page app. So it wouldn't be subpage. This would be one of 4 or 5. So I might say life, right? And then I would say, like, this would be a good one, family, That'd be a great one, right? And this would be my community work, because I actually do quite a bit of stuff in the community. And now, because this only gave 3, I'm going to copy this. I'm going to create another one. Uh-oh, why did you copy that for, right? I think I can do Shift Tab. Yeah, Shift Tab to bring it back. This is just stuff you learn as you get more into this stuff, right? So, and then the question would be, maybe I'll reorder these. These are just kind of my first thoughts of what this would be, right? So about my life, yeah, and about my work. Actually, this would probably be up here somewhere, right? But it doesn't matter because I can reorder these. And the other thing I'd want to do here is, this is a physical page that I've been playing with, but this is not a page that I'm going to have on my site. So this would be like life.html, right? And this one, and again, I don't have these files set up yet. Family.html, right? Community. Now I might want to actually make sure .html, right? And then work. So I might want to actually make sure the order before I start playing with these, but it's actually really pretty easy to actually do this as well, because you can actually just take and drag this stuff around. Like I could take and drag this, like if I say, you know what, makes more sense there. And then it's like, oh, sometimes it doesn't do exactly what you want. And actually there's a better way I could have done this, but right. So if I wanted to put that, I could do that there. So now let's actually look at the way it's rendered. So let me just, there we go, right? So then I have these links. Cool, right? So then that's my menu. And in this case, I might want to do another one, or let's see, talk about my life in general, my work, my family, my community. Yeah, these make sense, right? So the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change this, because, and this is also part of owning this site, right? And you're going to want to do this anyway, so you have to find out where that content is. And that's where the more work you've done in the lectures where you get to know your template, the easier that becomes, right? So then that's there. I got that. I still have my menu. That's cool. Okay, I got all that, right? So then I'm like, all right, so cool. We're looking good, right? So cool, right? So I've actually gotten to the place now where this part was pretty easy, because I've done all the other work to get me here, right? And so what I might want to do is also, play with this a little bit, right? And I'm going to add more content, but this is the landing page for Rio. Now, I would add more content here, right? But, this at least gives me a start. And then I'm going to end up dropping this right here. I'm going to end up dropping this out because I don't like it. I mean, I could actually, I looked at actually putting my images in here, but then I didn't like because I wanted to use a device that I like and it wasn't rendering. So I'm going to end up dropping at least this mock out of here. And it's called a device mock. And then just putting in images in here, which is probably one of the next things I'll talk about. But so now, right, these files when I link are going to error out because they're not physically here yet, right? All I have is a subpage, and that subpage is not linked anywhere, so that's why it's not actually on here, right? So and that is really all you need to do here. But the more work you do along the way, the better. Oh, I will tell you, as I was looking at that last one, I'll show you one thing I did. And let me just bring up the sub page real quick. Remember last time I was trying to figure out how to make, is it the sub? Oh yeah, this is it. It just looks so similar. This is where I was trying to figure out how to make this the beginning, so I could have a different page that has a different image, and I figured out how to do it. It's probably not the best, but I'm at least going to show you to give you an example. So I was playing around with a couple of things here, and this is again where the more time you spend with this, right, the more you can manipulate this. And it's not that you have to have a lot of manipulation here, but I'm just showing you ways that I have found with my template that may or may not give you insight into your own. So for me, there's a header, And basically as a header is a semantic tag, that's a section tag. And then what I wanted is actually to have it actually styled as this CTA, right? This is what I wanted. Again, this is the masthead and this is the CTA. And I was trying different things. I was actually coming in here, I was looking around. I'm like, okay, where's that image? Because the key is, where's that background? In this case, being where in the CSS is it, and can I just swap out? And so I played with it for a while, and I couldn't easily change it. And the more I looked at it, I'm like, well, okay, I could just brute force it. So what I did, now, I'm not saying this is the best way, is I just went into that header, right? And this is in my subpage. This is not in my index file, but I just got rid of it. So what it did in this case is it did give me that same thing I was looking for. So now I could build a page of content here around that. Now there's other reasons semantically I'd probably want to go in, and let's just see if this works. Let's just actually call this. Let's see if there's a, and I think there may be some functionality I'm going to lose here. Actually I should have used multi-line, but let's see if just calling it header works too. Oh, and it doesn't actually, and the reason that would be is that there is some styling on there. There must be some styling on that header that I can't drop until I know more about it, right? But I just wanted to show you, right? So just coming back here on your reply. So again, I want you to at least have that menu laid out. You don't have to have the physical files yet. But in your reply, and remember, in your reply here, you can do bullet points, right? So if I was to say life, right, and then you'd want to write something before this just about the experience of doing it. And then you could do, like, because, you know, if you have 4 menu items, and we're going to need a total of 20 pages because one page is the index page, right? You could figure out how many you need on each one. As a matter of fact, if you do 1 here, right, I would talk about my house because that's important to me, my life. What else about my life? My health, right? Right. So you get the idea, right? And then I could do work, right? And by doing this, and I want take a swag, or you know, a swag is kind of a wild guess, but not too wild because you want to give this some thought. Is that to what these sub pages will be, and that way when you start working on them next, you have at least thought about it. You can change it, of course, right? I would tell you to try to not change the menu, but again, you know, you want, at this point, I at least want to see you have thought about it, okay? Again, do your workflow, give us a link to your GitHub IO site, and hopefully, well, I'm not going to go over that because I think hopefully most of you got the idea of the difference between looking at the files versus looking at the rendered site. But you know what, I'll just go ahead and talk about that for just a second. So when you're giving me links, and especially as it relates to Project Zero, what you're really doing is you're giving me this, right? So at this point, right now, and you wouldn't want to give me this link because I can't, I mean I could, but it just, you know, it's not the way you want to do it. You want to give me a link to your repo that is for, I just gotta look at all ones I have here, right? It's to, you don't want to give me that, right? So which, by the way, I actually need to, I ended up just deleting some of this vulnerability thing. It's not, I found out it's not a huge thing given what mine was, so I could dismiss it, but I like to know, and I actually had done just some beginning analysis, but that's not the point of being here. The point is that when you give us the link, make sure you give us the HTML link. And remember, right, the reason you don't have to specify index is by default the index loads. So let me just complete by saying that here, right? So when I'm looking at the GitHub, or sorry, my pages site, I don't have to specify index.html, right? But if I wanted to look at one of my subpages, I could just directly without the menu. But you don't have to when you give a link, because by default a web server will look through and look for some index or related to an index file. It might have a different extension, but in our case it's always .html. Okay? All right, we're getting there. Continue on. See you later.